Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Writers Fantasy Forecheck podcast. As always, I am your host, Jacob Strozyk, joined after a spectacular holiday hiatus.
I'm your co-host, Jacob Billington, as usual.
And we are going to jump into the first show of the year, going into fantasy trends for this week and kind of the previous week as well, since like I said, we had a little bit of a break because of the holiday. But we're back, we're ready to roll, and we're gonna dive into some fun stuff here. First things first, as far as fun stuff goes, we're gonna have our question of the week. A little bit of phenomenon I've noticed just in my years of watching and covering hockey, the New Year's boost. Do you put any stock into when a player starts off the new year hot? And do you generally have confidence that they can carry it into the rest of or the remainder of the season, I should say?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no with the New Year's, but I'm gonna say yes to All Star. I'm gonna change that question a bit.
Okay.
After the All Star break, if somebody's hot for the first 4, 5, 6, 7 games, then I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna say okay, because that's always a turning point. I know that some people do come out of the New Year and start hot, but sometimes that's just so hard to predict, I find. But the All Star break is a great way to really see where people are at. And if somebody does come out of the gate slow or on fire, I kind of stick with that for the rest of the year.
So you think the New Year's break kind of chops up what the New Year's boost would be, and you would
Yeah.
say New Year or not New Year's, the All-Star break is more of a what's the word I'm looking for? Is more of a showing of what that would be. So do you find that it's players that go to the All-Star game would get the boost, or the players that got the break from going to the All-Star game get the boost?
Yeah, obviously you'll see some of the people going to the All Star game are going to get a little bit of a boost, usually. But the people that get the break, that's like they get time to spend with their family. Like the Christmas break, not even that much of a break. Most people that live overseas don't even get to go home. They're spending time. They're having a great time with their friends and whoever they're staying with, but they don't get to go back to Russia or Sweden or wherever. They don't get that if they only get 3 days off. So, um, like you look at what Boone Jenner, he very
Mhm.
disappointed to be going to the All Star break, but he had his vacation scheduled for San Diego. He was going to go enjoy the sun, relax, do all that kind of stuff. You're not doing that over the Christmas break. So the All Star break is a really good way to just kind of reset yourself, recuperate, and see where things go after that.
I feel like an all-star discussion is tough to have in fantasy, but we might touch on it once we get closer to that event. But I'm inclined to agree with you as far as the boost goes,
Yeah.
and performance. I would ask what players do you think would have that type of effect on, but I think it's too early to ask that, so I don't think I'll go there
Yeah.
quite yet. All right then. Well, do you want to do the same order? Do uptrends first, then downtrends, or do you want to switch it up, do downtrends first? How are you feeling? What do you want to do?
New year, new us. Let's start negative.
Negative. New year, new us. Fair enough. Downtrend players. I have three. What do you got?
I've only got two. Um,
All right.
yeah, so you start
I'll
us
I'll,
off.
I'll start at the top of my list. A Buffalo pick, but it's noticeable for fantasy owners as well. JJ Paterka. He
Yeah.
was off to, I would say, a pretty good start as far as his just overall production. He still has, a couple of assists getting chipped in here and there, but the problem is he's not scoring goals anymore, and that's really where the value that he was offering early in the season was coming from. But he hasn't scored a goal in 11 games. That's definitely something that's going to cause some issues for fantasy owners who were looking for that little extra depth boost from him. And would I say drop him yet? I'm 50-50 on it. There are some other players that you can pick up to replace what he would be doing.
Yeah.
But if you feel and you're one of those people who has confidence that the New Year's boost might be a thing, Buffalo's 2-0 in the new year so far. Don't know how long that's going to last. But if you're a believer in that type of mojo type thing, he might be somebody worth holding on to and just sitting until he heats back up again.
Yeah, if I had him in fantasy, I'd be hanging on to him. Um, and he's one of those players that, like you said, he is going to heat back up. Maybe not to the same rate that he was. He was scoring at a pretty good pace for quite a bit of the season. But yeah, if he can find even like three-quarters of his game back and start getting those goals and points back up, even if he's only scoring once every third or fourth game, that's totally fine. That's what he's in your lineup to do. Um, but yeah, I would definitely hang on to him, but start some other guys ahead of him.
Yeah, it's just it's a tough scenario. He's still playing the top six, so the opportunity is there. The production
Yep.
just isn't.
Yep. First I got on my list is you went with a hometown pick. I'll go with my hometown pick, Josh
Do it.
Norris.
Yeah.
Same conversation that me and you just had about Paterka. Don't drop Josh Norris, especially if you're in a deeper
No.
league. But he's got no points in his last six games. He just went. I think it was 5 games that he went with a goal, and he had like 8 points over those 5 games. And he was on a fantastic tear. And obviously, he started the season out of the lineup, just recovering from his shoulder injury. But we're at the point now that Ottawa stinks, and there's not a whole lot going on for them.
What's that
So
like?
we're getting into Buffalo's second rebuild territory, and I think we're going to talk about that on the Senators Roundtable this week.
Oh boy.
Um, yeah, but no, Josh Norris has done a lot of really good things, and he's just on a really cold streak. If you watch him play, he's doing some fantastic stuff. Like he's getting a ton of opportunities. I think a switch to the wing would be beneficial for him, but I don't see that happening. Well, no, you know what? I'm going to say wait
What's his face-off
14.
stat?
Shane Pinto is coming back in 2 weeks. When he comes back, I would like to see Pinto on in center and Josh Norris on the wing. I think he's going to thrive on the wing if that's how it plays out.
I mean, that would be an interesting way to maybe give him a boost. I like Norris, both as just a player in general and for fantasy. He,
Yeah,
for the past number of years, except for when he's injured, obviously, when he's on the ice, he's producing very well.
yeah,
And it's something that a lot of people probably aren't paying attention to because he's on a bad team. People don't tend to pay attention to those types of players, so you can get them at a decent value.
yeah,
Your suggestion to take him off center, I'm trying to see where his faceoff percentage is at. He's at 52.7 this year,
yeah,
which not great, not terrible, but he's above the 50% line, so that might provide a little extra fantasy value if he stays on center. But if you switch him to wing and he ultimately is putting goals back up on the board, I'd say that would offset that.
yeah.
So I don't think it's a terrible idea if he actually gets to make that adjustment at all.
Yeah, and like he's gonna be back. He's good for 30 goals a year. Um,
Yeah.
he's gonna be back, and whether he's not even generally that streaky of a player, but he kind of is showing to be that this year, and maybe as he's still developing, he does turn into that. But no, he's gonna get back up on his feet. Don't drop him, but he's definitely on that downtrend list.
I mean, he's shooting a lot. 32 games played. He's got 84 shots.
Yeah,
Like he's playing fine. So I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't drop. I'm gonna agree with you there. Player number two, we've talked about him a couple times, so I'm just gonna gloss over it real quick. Bowen Byram, he's got 2 points
yeah,
in his last 11 games, and he's injured again. This is what his third, fourth time being injured this season.
yeah,
Even if it's for a short-term play, honestly, I feel like it's just pure drop candidate at this point. It's
yeah,
not worth giving him the roster spot because he's not doing much with it when he's active. And it's not worth an IR spot because somebody else is probably going to be injured. There's a lot of key injuries throughout the league right now, and IR slots are definitely filling up. And I don't know if Byram is even worth one of those at this point.
yeah. He's worth dropping right now. There's a whole lot of reasons that you could argue with me about keeping him, but I think it boils down to he's just not doing it. He has the potential to, but he's had the whole season, and at no point this season has he been like, "Okay, I'm back, I'm ready to go." It's just this isn't his season. Draft him in the offseason if you're doing another draft. 100%
Yeah,
try and pick him up. Try again next year. But for the rest of this year, by the way things look, it's not his year.
he's still a young defenseman, so there still is potential. I don't want to take away from that. If you're
Yeah.
in a keeper league and you have extra IR slots, and you're maybe looking to build through young defense, you always can hold on to him, but just at this point, he's a better pickup drop person
Yeah.
with how he's currently playing and how he currently acts in fantasy.
Yeah. I'm gonna say the same thing about my next pick, and that's Jared McCann. Right now,
Okay.
he's gonna fill in for any injuries that you got going on. He he doesn't look like somebody that you want in your lineup long term this season. Again, draft him again next season. Try again. Just not his year. He's coming off of a 40-goal year last year. He's just not that player this year, and maybe he's just not that player in general. But right now, Jared McCann is just not producing where you'd want him to be for the name that he brings.
To me, McCann is like he's Seattle's William Karlsson, like Vegas is. He
Yeah,
had that big 40-goal year where he's like, this is what I can do. And then there's the reality that sets in of this is what he will do
yeah,
ultimately. And I think McCann really is that maybe 45, 50 point, 25 goal scorer type guy that he'll finish by the end of the year. And that's not to say that he could never score 30 plus, maybe even 40 goals again. But realistically, how he's playing and the role that he's in right now, I think the 25 goal scorer fits his bill a little bit better. And you're right, he's a better fill-in candidate because he's not performing up to the standard that he did, or not the standard, the the circumstances that he had last season, and
yeah.
it's not going to pan out nearly as well if you're holding on to him long term as a fantasy owner this season.
Yeah, no, 100%. He just he can be better. He's shown that he can be better, and he just needs to put that all together and have like a 10 game stretch where he scores 6, 7 goals and just kind of wake himself back up. Have a good stretch of hockey, and he's back.
And it doesn't help that Seattle's kind of been having a rough go of it this season. They're on a hot streak right now, which we'll
Yep,
talk about a little bit later. But in general, their overall play has been very meh. Is
yep,
probably the best way to describe it. There's just
yep,
not much going on either side of the puck, so it's tough to find a lot of value in fantasy when the team isn't really doing much.
yeah, 100%.
I'll stick with the West, and I'm going to talk about streak-ish kind of candidate here. Trevor Moore. At the start of the year and even towards, November, December-ish, he was playing pretty well, putting up a lot of goals, not a lot of assists, but he's getting first line ice time or at least top six ice time. He's getting all the opportunities. But as
Yep,
of late, he's got one goal in his last 6 games. And in his last 15 games, I wanted to go back even more and see how it was. In his last 15 games, he only has 5 goals and 1 assist.
yeah,
So he's not really pumping out stuff that's worth holding on to at this point.
yeah,
He would be a trade candidate for me for maybe like use him to enhance maybe a bigger trade and see if you can use him as an additional piece. But I wouldn't be dropping him necessarily. I would be looking to either move him or just put somebody else in instead of him.
yeah, yeah. And again, don't drop him. And it's a perfect 1-for-1 trade would be Trevor Moore for JJ Paterka. Just kind of like they're in the same position. They both are more than capable of it. And just kind of you want to see a little bit of change on your team. That's the kind of trade that you pull off. Two people that are struggling, but are going to snap out of it soon. So yeah, that's LA has a lot of players that are kind of having a bit of a down year, which is weird because as a whole they've been really good. But
Yeah,
same as like Pierre Luc Dubois, like he's not producing very well compared to the standard that he's been set to. But yeah, Trevor Moore's in the same boat. Like he set a bar for himself pretty high at the start of the year, and he's kind of fallen off of that a little bit, but he'll be back.
there's still a chance he can finish the year with like 28, 32 goals. And
Yeah,
I think that would be good for any fantasy owner to have. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to necessarily drop him, but you can maybe look to move him if you can get a little extra value on top of it.
yeah.
And then I have the teams that are
Ottawa.
not playing well right now. Well, we talked about Ottawa a few times, so I don't want to harp on that too. If you want to go on a harp real quick, you're welcome to. But there's only one team, in my opinion, that is playing so bad that they were worth mentioning, and it's San Jose. They are on an 11 game losing streak.
Yeah.
And it's not that anybody expected much better from them this season at all. Like at all, at all. But when you're looking for fantasy assets, even on those bad teams, they don't really have too many. You can maybe make an argument. I'd say maybe Hurdle, Grandland. You can even say Eklund at times, maybe Zetterland if he's on a mini streak, but there's just not a whole lot there to want on your fantasy roster because you're guaranteeing yourself some minus
Yeah.
in the plus minus category, but then you might get a couple of goals and assists here and there. I just don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah. The only person I'm really interested in, and it has to be a very specific situation. If you're in a league that really values saves, then 100% pick up Mackenzie Blackwood. He's making a ton of saves, but his save percentage is terrible. It's actually not that bad, given where league average is.
Yeah,
But he's going to have a lower save percentage than most,
he's not going to get
just because the
wins.
team lets in so many goals. Like, if you get a lot of points per save, 100% try and pick him up. He's going to make more saves than anybody else in the league, but he's going to let in a lot of goals. So if you're in a league that has a good balance of that, maybe pick him up. But other than that, just stay away from every other San Jose Shark.
Yeah, and it hurts me as a Sharks fan as well to see this level of pain and suffering. But at the same time, I'm like, boy, this is familiar. I've been here before for the past 13 years.
Yeah.
So it's business as usual for me personally, but I pity the rest of uh Sharks Nation for having to go deal with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to harp on Ottawa, now is your time.
There's nothing good about them right now. That's it. No, goaltending is terrible. Defense is terrible. The forwards aren't doing anything. Like the fourth line has been the best line for the past 5 games. So it's
Does
all
it
good.
have anything to do with Shabbat coming back to the lineup?
No, but he's not helping the problem.
Fair
Like
enough.
he's not solving any of the issues, which for an $8 million number one defenseman, you want to see, but it's just not happening.
He's got 4 points in his last 4 games back.
I know, and he gets the points, but he's just so frustrating.
I feel that. I
Yeah,
feel that so much. All right, let's change it up. We'll get to the positive uptrends. I didn't have a lot as far as players to really catch my attention on uptrend. I had a repeat one, so I'll mention him real quick, but otherwise I had two that really stood out to me otherwise.
okay. I also have two, and one is somebody we've talked about a lot.
Well, then fire it up. Who's your one we talked about a lot?
Jonathan Huberdeau. He looks like he's back a little bit. Now, do not pick him up and lose a week and then come yell at me because that's probably what's going to happen. But right now, as of right now, the moment that I'm recording this, 8:24 Atlantic time, January 7th, he is back and he's on a bit of a heater. He's got points in like 4 of his last 7 games, and 2 of them are multi-point game. Like he's producing well. Calgary's been doing all right. They're not doing great. They're not doing bad. But he looks like he's getting his way back into not 115 point Huberdeau, but like 75 point Huberdeau.
Which would be a very welcome thing from anybody who has held on to him for this long.
Yeah.
You might be reaping those rewards for your patience, but you
Yeah.
also might be at the bottom of your league if you hadn't made any other adjustments. So prayers to all of you at that point.
Yeah.
um, I don't really have too much of a comment on Huberto other than just keep hoping that he keeps it up because
Yeah.
I don't want to harp on him too much and then like you said people just come yelling at us afterwards.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. But as far as my repeat player goes, we've talked about him a few times, so I just want to gloss over him. If you haven't picked up Blake Coleman yet, another Calgary Flame, grab him. He's on a good streak again. He's playing very well, and he's playing top minutes. So he has all the opportunities on top of it. If you haven't done it yet, he's still rostered at only a mid-tier rate on both ESPN and Yahoo. So he's still there's still plenty of chance to get that value on him, and I have to say, just do it.
There's nothing else to add. He adds just a little bit of everything, and when he's on his good scoring streaks, that's when he's at his peak. So
Yeah.
right now he's kind of doing a lot of scoring. So right now is a great time to have him in your roster. And even when he's not scoring, he does add the little things.
Hmm. So, as far as an actual player that I have from my list here, we have talked about him as well, but I like the rate at which he's producing, and it's Gustav Nyquist.
Yep.
Always been one of my personal favorite depth players in the league.
Yep.
And right now, he's on a massive 8 game point streak. He's got 6 goals and 12 points in that span, but he's only averaging around 2.5 shots a game. So it's not a lot of shooting that he's doing, but he's
Yep.
making the shots count. And I think that's very important when you're recognizing players on hot streaks, because if he does shoot a little bit more, he might be able to maintain the hot streak for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that like it's all about streaks for him that we've talked about plenty of times. He'll go on these incredible runs. Like this is longer than usual, but 12 points in 8 games is fantastic for him. Um, he's got that opportunity that we talked about in Nashville, and he can work his way as high up the lineup as his skill will take him. And he's doing all the right things right now. So if he's available, 100% pick him up while he's hot. Can't promise that'll last forever, but pick him up while he's hot.
His roster rate is rising. It was like 60 something percent on ESPN. I didn't see what it was on Yahoo, but it's getting up there. So people are recognizing him. I only got one more. Who else you got?
My last one is, and I can't believe I'm saying this name in a fantasy podcast and talking about how you should absolutely pick him up. Vladislav Nemesnikov,
Oh, big money.
the fourth round pick that everybody trades for at a deadline. But he's sticking around in Winnipeg. He's the number two center. He took Mark Scheifele's spot as the number one center for it was just for a practice in 2 periods, and Scheifele was back up, and it was the right decision. But Nemesnikov is on a heater right now. He's got 7 points in his last 5 games, including 5 assists in his last 3 games. He is just doing everything right. He's playing with Cole Perfetti, and right now I believe it's Alex Iafallo, but that'll be Kyle Connor when he comes back because the Winnipeg Jets are just incredibly deep. Now
And
I
hot.
and they're the hottest team in the league. They're the number one team in the league. Um, and they have Vladislav Nemesnikov as their second line center. Like, I don't get it, but if you are looking for some depth, absolutely pick up Nemesnikov.
It's like that Paul Rudd meme where he goes, "Look at us. Who'd have thought? Not me." And that's all Nemesnikov gets to do at this point
Yeah.
as he keeps running through his career. And I know we've talked about him at least a couple times, being like, if only he stepped up and did this, he would be so
Yeah.
good. If only he stepped up in this, he'd be a great fantasy asset. If he just did a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and now
Yeah.
he is. So it's nice to see that kind of investment in a player like that come to fruition, especially if you made that investment early enough. I'd say if you picked him up and held on to him in deeper leagues around like November, that's something that's really going to pay off for at least January, maybe February if he keeps going on that trend. But that remains to be seen.
The only concern that I have about him, it's not that he is bound to fall off. It's that I would not be surprised to see the Jets target a veteran for their second line center in the same way that they did with Paul Stastny
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago in the 2018 run. That's the kind of thing. Like Claude Giroux, does he want to go win a cup in Winnipeg? I don't know.
That'd be
Um,
interesting.
yeah, like Ottawa's talking about moving some veterans for some really good pro players that know what they're doing. But again, like if you trade Giroux, you're not trading, you're not getting his value back. So it doesn't make sense to me. But if Giroux wants to go to Winnipeg right now and win a cup, that's a like that kind of deal is something I could see happening to kind of replicate that Paul Stastny trade.
That would be a big fantasy move too if he gets traded before the deadline in
Yeah,
any capacity and he gets moved to a team like Winnipeg. That would be somebody that you would want to make a move for, uh,
yeah,
especially considering what he can contribute to a team like Winnipeg.
yeah.
Let me see. I have my last one is somebody that I've been hoping to have on this list for a long time, and I'm glad that I can finally say it. Jonathan Drouin
Yeah.
is finally producing, and it only took until the middle of December to do it, but he's got 7 points in his last 6 games. He's
Yeah.
playing top line minutes. He's averaging 23 minutes a night since the end of December. So he is really, really picking it up. Now, I'm putting a cautionary exclamation point next to his name for the sake of you don't know if that's going to hold. You don't know if it's going to maintain. But if this is one of the biggest ifs I have right now,
Yeah.
if he can just hold on to this level of production, he doesn't have to go any higher than throwing up an extra assist a game, throwing up a goal every other game, throwing up an assist and a goal every 2 games or something. However, he wants to do it, just maintaining this good point per game or just under point per game pace, I think would be a tremendous, valuable asset for the remainder of the season. And I don't think that he would get traded out of Colorado for any reason. I think they would hold on to a player like that and use him. And I think for fantasy, it's something that if you invest now, it's high risk, it's low risk, high reward. I don't even want to say high risk, high reward, because he's not really taking up a key spot on anybody's roster.
Nope.
Invest now, see what you get out of him.
Yep. And if you're hanging on to him, it's going to take a lot to try and pry him out of your roster. Obviously, like somebody offers you Jack Hughes, you're going to say 100%. But
Oh yeah.
when you're making trades for somebody like Jonathan Drouin, you're not really going too far out of that value zone. You might as well just hang on to him. Like, there's no reason to trade him away. There's no reason to drop him. There's like you want to hang on to this guy and just keep praying that he keeps this stuff up.
Yeah, I'll say this. If anybody's offering you Jack Hughes for Jonathan Huberdeau, or not for Jonathan Drouin, see what else you can get out of them because they might not be mentally okay. See what else you can squeeze out of them for such a low price. All right. Uptrend teams. There are a bunch,
Yep.
actually. We already touched on the Jets. They're on a 5 game win streak right now. And like you
Wagon.
said, they're the best team in the league. Absolute wagon. If we're talking wagons, we could talk about Arizona, but they're not like on a win streak or anything. But we'll talk about the Arizona wagon at some point.
Yep.
But as far as other hot teams, I also have the Kraken won 6 straight. The
Yep.
Oilers and the Panthers have both won 7 straight. And in regards to the Panthers, there's pretty much no way you're going to be getting him unless you pay an obscene amount in fantasy assets for him. Sam Reinhart is playing out of his mind right now,
Stop.
and it continues to hurt me. And I don't mean to keep rubbing it into your face, but it sincerely pains me personally because I know in our league you traded him, but in my other league I had the opportunity to pick him 3 times and I didn't do it. So I'm also just personally victimized by myself and by Sam Reinhart's production.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic as somebody who enjoys him. I'm a personal fan just of him as a player. It's fantastic to see. As a fantasy owner, it hurts me a lot.
And as two people who cover and actively cheer for Atlantic teams, seeing the whatever contract he's going to be given and the $11.5 million contract that Nylander's about to get,
Yeah.
the cap strap teams in the Atlantic are it's just rising, and the two young teams, Ottawa and Buffalo, hopefully they can take advantage of that.
Oh, I would kill for a Sam Reinhart return to Buffalo. I'll pay him $11 million right now. I do not care. He
Yeah,
would solve so many problems that we have. Oy
yeah.
vey. It hurts. But
At
all
least
right.
you got
Any other
Levi.
ones?
No, I don't have any more.
All right. Well, then we'll wrap this up for this week. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to this week's episode of Fantasy Forecheck. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred listening channel, as well as the Hockey Writers podcast and YouTube pages, where you can find anything and everything else hockey related. You can always follow me on Twitter at Strozyk67.
And I'm there at Jacob Billington.
You can feel free to drop us a like, leave a comment, and we will keep you up to date on all things fantasy throughout the year. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.